Hello and welcome to the Way of the Sword on the Edge. Right, what we've got here is the Bestech Kendo. Kendo, Japanese martial art. That's the one where they use the bamboo swords and protective armor. Apparently originated as training for samurai, and the word kendo, the translation for that is Way of the Sword. Right, there you go, a little bit of the background. Guys, I'm going to do the usual materials, dimensions, and then we'll go through some of the design attributes and my thoughts on the knife. Right, let's dive straight in. So in terms of materials, we've got blade steel of S35 VN. Handle is titanium, clip mill titanium. The hardware, as in the screws, that's all stainless steel, and we've got a ball bearing pivot. Right, let's charge through the dimensions. Blade length we've got is 94 millimeters or 3.7 inches. Blade thickness 3.5 millimeters, 0.13 inches. Handle thickness 13.2 millimeters or 0.52 inches. Close length is 12 millimeters or 4.72 inches, and then the total length for this guy is 21.3 centimeters, so just a little over 210 mils, and that is 8.38 inches. Right, let's check the weight on this knife. Not the smallest knife, so even though it's got the materials that should contribute to lightness, as in all the titanium, I think this is going to be, well, I shouldn't say think, I have, I have already measured it, so just to show you, 125 grams, but reasonable for this construction and size of knife, I think, and it feels about right in hand. 4.4 ounces. There you go. Right, let's have a look at this very, very clean and actually very attractive knife in its simplicity. Blade shape, obviously tanto, but a very tidy tanto. This it is just so crisp the way that is done. This is not modified tanto. This is the sort of pure, almost original style of tanto blade. Lovely satin finish on it, the way that Bestech does this well as well. It's one of those satin finishes that if you catch the light just right, you get that sort of rainbow effect almost on the blade. So primary grind is flat, and you've got that satin finish, and on that grind as well, satin finish and flat. And then the rest of the blade, so the ricasso and stretching all the way till that sort of secondary grind there, that's all stone washed, and then the spine of the blade is also stone washed. But again, when you use that word, very, very crisply and neatly done. And that bit of contrast you can see as the light catches it does highlight that shape beautifully. Nice little plunge line coming down into your sharpening choil, and also a decent sized sharpening choil as well. The edge on this knife, very, very tidily done as well for a factory edge. That is really nicely done. It might be a little, is that just a bit of dirt or a slight nick there? Could be a slight little nick on that blade. Easy to touch up. Right, a lot of sleight of hand on this knife. So let me explain. There's a lot of little slight details that just contribute to a really, really good looking knife. So we've got a slight thumb ramp with jimping. And then if you look at that blade, if you look at the spine of it, and maybe if I get it in an angle, it might accentuate a little bit. But along that spine, there's just the slightest little curve on that blade. But tidy and discreet, elegant, very nicely done. Flipper tab does stick out a little bit, and quite a narrow flipper tab. You got the jimping on the one side, does allow you to get good grip. Quite a tough detent on this knife, but that sort of helps in that getting that knife to snap out on those ball bearings. Right, I think I've covered everything on the blade. Let's look at this handle, also really elegant. And here's another example of that sort of sleight of hand I was speaking about. But you can see that handle shape. It's just slightly pinched in the middle. So it's not completely squared. You just got that little bit of shape. I suppose that almost just hints maybe at that bamboo that's used in kendo, just with that little slight curve that you get in bamboo between the, I think they're called knots, I suppose, if not, but you know what I mean, where those ridges are on bamboo. And then we've got this beveled edge that also just has a little bit of a curve, and the curve is just that little bit more than the curve on the outside of the handle, so it just accentuates that shape a little bit. And then that also is just slightly hollow machine, so there you can see it as the light catches it. You can see the little bit of a shadow on that edge, so it's just got that little sort of concave curve to it, but really very elegantly done. And then these little grooves that are cut in with the rounded edge, also just nice, subtle little design details. So not overly fussy, it doesn't try too hard, but just adds a little bit of interest to that handle. And then if you look on this side, on the milled pocket clip, also incredibly tidy and crisp, slightly curved, a little bit of a pinched shape to that pocket clip as well. And then that hole that's cut in reflecting the same shape as those grooves that are cut into the handle. Just nice, subtle, not trying too hard type details on the knife. Backspacer of titanium, I probably didn't mention that when I went through the materials. And then what I didn't mention as well, but I'll speak about the other options to this knife, but this specific knife is the all titanium, well, the handle, that is anyway. And it is a limited edition. So let me just catch that there. So this is number 19 of 100. I hope that's coming through. Well, I may as well speak about that. So the knife is available in a number of options. So in terms of the limited edition versions, you also get this in a blue stonewash, and a really nice stonewash on this, by the way. Try to catch that a little bit. A very, very neatly done stonewash. You always get those little flecks of gloss in the stonewash. Beautifully done. So you get it in a blue stonewash, then you also get it in a flamed, and you kind of get those stripes the way that the flaming is done on the handle, and then you get it as a black stonewash. So the handle and blade are then black stonewashed. And then the non-limited version has a D2 blade as opposed to the S35 VN, and that has a G10 handle with stainless steel liner, and that is available in a whole variety of G10 colors. Right, so getting back to this one, it is the limited edition, and it is the titanium. And I'm assuming that each of those color variants probably has the same number of the same run, I should say, as in 100 in each color, or in each variation. I'll get there eventually. So in terms of size of the knife, let's have a look at that quickly. So I did mention it just now. It's quite a big knife. So you can see my medium-sized hands, a lot of space on the back there. So bigger paws are going to get onto this very comfortably as well. And very comfortable in hand. No hot spots. Everything sort of a little bit rounded and with that beveled edge and so on. And I must mention something as well on that beveled edge, and this is a very, very subtle detail. In fact, I, with my eyes, can't see it with the naked eye. Sort of just caught it a little bit when the light, in certain angles of light. But looking at it under the magnifier, that little beveled edge along there and the pocket clip just has a little diagonal line just sort of machined into it. Again, it's one of those little details that when you pick it up and you look at it closely, it's sort of satisfying to pick up those less obvious details on a knife. Speak about that pocket clip. So not deep carry, it is milled, and you can see that there is a little bit of the knife that's going to be sticking out besides the pocket clip that you'll obviously see, but you're going to see the back of the knife a bit. But again, really tidily done with that slight pinched shape on the outside and no visible screw. So in order to get to that pocket clip, you'll need to actually take the knife apart. And then that knife, you can see, that clip you can see is slightly recessed into the handle and is not reversible. So you don't have that little machined space for the pocket clip on the other side. So it is a right hand tip up carry. That little bit of relief cut for the flex in the lock, you can see really squared off, so no fussiness, no extra detail in there. But in this particular case, it is in keeping with the overall aesthetic, I think, of the knife. A little bit of extra detail on the screw, so it's not really a pivot cap in this case, because that whole detail is part of that screw, and it's all Torx, by the way, so easy to get into this knife with common tools. Right, let's flip that open so I can just show you on the inside. So we do have a little bit of relief cutting in the inside as well, and you can probably see that there without the need of a torch. But quite a bit of material taken away there on that side, on the show side, and then on the lock side, in the part of the handle that's not the actual lock, you can see a long strip of titanium machined away there, just to save a little bit of weight on the knife. So I think I've covered everything in terms of the design of the knife, but really nice. And you know, I've mentioned that Bestech, that's the problem with the satin finish. So it is beautiful and catches the light beautifully, but it does show fingerprints very, very easily. A fingerprint magnet, this knife. But I didn't mention, by the way, while I'm looking at that, so excuse me for meandering all over the place here, but very neatly done lanyard hole as well that is drilled, I should say, through the back spacer. So really, I mean, from all angles, a very, very, very tidy knife. This nice design, subtle type design. Right, so I think that does pretty much cover everything from the design of the knife. The action is good. I mean, the knife really flies out there. It does have that little like sort of sound as it opens and closes, but it doesn't affect the smoothness. And I mentioned earlier the detent. It's quite a strong detent. So if I push that close, you'll see it doesn't make much of a sound, but it does suck it in there. But it's quite a strong detent, and I think, you know, that I'm not sure if that's the size of the detent ball. Let's see if we can catch that in there, or the strength of the lock. But that does push quite strongly. You can feel that when you're opening the lock, but it does push quite strongly against the blade, so you don't have the drop shuddy kind of blade, even though this, you know, it is smooth and the blade does fly out when you flip it. And that is the only way to deploy the knife. Right, guys, I think all that's really left to do, well, there's two things left to do. First of all, for me to, as in almost all of my reviews, is to say big thank you to Blades and Triggers for allowing me to mess around with this knife for a couple of days. I really do support their, I really do appreciate their support of the channel. And this knife available from Blades and Triggers. And if you're interested in seeing the price on that, go and check this out on their website, BNT Online. This specific knife came from the Eastgate branch in the Johannesburg area. And then I've seen him available on what is it, Blade HQ in the US, if you're interested in the dollar price, and I'm sure available at your local knife store wherever you are in the world. God, provided that this is legal in your country, of course. Right, and I think now all that's left to do is a couple of size comparisons. So my usual suspects are the Spyderco Manix 2, a knife that's been out for a long time, and I think a lot of people are probably familiar with it because it's been around for so long. Sort of in that same realm in terms of size, probably similar in terms of weight. Yeah, I think sort of there or thereabouts between those two. Then the other one I've been using is the Medford Midi Marauder. Let's check that out. I think they're also going to be very, very similarly sized. So there, that is the Marauder. Midi Marauder is going to be a bit slimmer, but it is called the Slim Midi Marauder, so I suppose one should hope. And then in terms of weight, yeah, I think they're pretty similar between those two. And then the last one, a knife that's also been around forever and a day, and I'm sure most of you have been exposed to it, seen it, or it's available at your local store, and that's the Benchmade Mini Barrage, still on their catalogue of knives, and as I say, it's been out for a long time, but there you can, just to get a sense of the size, an altogether smaller knife, but just to give you a little bit of size perspective on that. Right, so that's it. I think that's all I have for you today. A good-looking knife, though, and you know, Bestech, I've mentioned it before. They're good knives. They're sort of more expensive knives are every bit as good in terms of quality as WE knives. And they're normally considerably cheaper, and this guy actually is as well. So you know, go and check out the price. You're getting really good value for money compared to the likes of WE and some others, I guess. But yeah, as I say, nice knife, feels good in hand, nice size. There's nothing really negative to say about this boy. Right, let's put that down there. Let's give you a quick look at the show side for a last time. Get the light reflecting on that blade. And then lay him down that way, just because it lies flatter. And that's it. Guys, once again, I really do appreciate you popping in, and I would really appreciate if you would subscribe and hit that bell icon so you can be informed every time I release a new video, because I would really love you to join me more often. And other than that, you go well and God bless.